Oh,
Over, there you go. Maybe without the baby.
thank you. Port of Johnstown Management Committee, October 21st, 2024. Call this meeting to order at 6:30. Before I get to approve the agenda, just like to welcome our new incoming general manager, Leslie Dryden. I believe the port and the team have a lot to accomplish under your leadership and through your guidance and the motivation. I'm confident about the future growth that you will bring to the port. So welcome aboard, Leslie. Would you like to say a few words? Click mine.
Click it again.
It still works, yeah, okay.
Need a mover to approve the agenda as presented. Any moved by Mr. Ward and seconded by Mr. Smell. All in favor? And before I go any further, Mr. Kevin Saunders sends his regrets. Ms. Hernandez sends her regrets, and Mr. Cameron's out on his combine. Oh, no, Mr. Cameron got his combine working. Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah, hi team. Thanks for waiting for me. No, we got her fixed. We got everything's up and running, and happy to be here. Just couldn't be there in person, folks. Thanks.
Okay, just make sure you put your hand up there so if you want to speak, okay? I'll cut.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have my good clerk too. She'll keep an eye on it. Thanks. We're moving on to number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest in general thereof, if any. Delegations and presentations, don't have any tonight. Minutes of the previous Port of Johnstown Committee meeting, September 23rd, 2024. Any errors, omissions? I need a mover. Moved by Mr. Warden, second by Mr. Martell. All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the previous Port Management Committee minutes, if any. Any errors, omissions? Okay. Moving on to number 7, discussion items. We have none, so we're going to go to action information item. 8A, green operations. And Mr. Moulton, you're on, buddy.
Corn intake was very strong the entire month.
Everybody turn. How about is it distance maybe?
No, there's no distance requirement.
Better,
They're on-
better.
Unfortunately, through the chair. I
Mine
think
worked.
you were getting
Yeah.
close to one side and it was overriding.
This is no flash. Don't hit that side. Only hit that side.
Now it's like it. Now it's off.
It's off, but it's still, you're off.
So I can hear you, Steve.
We're gonna call a 5-minute recess. Need a mover?
I'll move.
Move, seconder, all in favor, carry.
Joey, mine's working. Mine's working.
I did not though, Tori.
And mine's solid. Working.
Yeah.
Ron was like, Miss White.
Yours is fine.
Test, test, test.
I can hear Steve.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is everybody working now?
That's the one too? Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have a speaker.
It's the system's rebooting, so some may take a moment or two longer to work. The side.
Someone else turn on? No flashing? Can no-
Else, just one or two. I'm on.
Okay, reboot looks like it works.
Mine's good. 1, 2, 3.
Everyone's.
It's just,
Okay, you can still hear me.
it's just funny.
Oh, look.
Just keep tapping it.
We call this meeting back to order at 6:42 PM. Any questions, comments on the grain operations report? Okay, we're going to move on to 8B, maintenance report. Who's going to speak to that? Mr. Moulton?
Take that one as well, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Do you want me to read the report or does anybody just have any questions about it?
Let's read the report.
Let's read, okay. So with the maintenance for the month of September, I'm sorry, conducted monthly premise inspections as per the GMP, grain handling equipment checks and maintenance during vessel loading, empty bin maintenance, annex bin number 8, clean ship loader automatic valves, replaced drive belts on annex reclaim belt number 2, completed modifying dust fan shaft guards for increased personal safety, cleaned and painted the elevator, fabricate and install wire mesh door on both entrances to the car haul equipment room. This was an item on the federal safety inspection report. GMP maintenance of all available equipment, install urethane liner and marine turn head bedding on conveyors 1, 2, and 3. Items from work order log and weekly and monthly dust system inspections of maintenance. The electrical for the month worked with millwrights as required. Disconnect overhead electrical service to the garage that we're doing the renovations on. Repair overhead lights in the CGC grading office. Disconnect temporary electrical service to horse construction trailer. Relocate limit switches on the top valve of the annex loft or exit. Move the switches to a location that allows safe access for troubleshooting. Install new soft start on MCC number 7 for new truck receiving conveyor. And items from work order log. And that's a lot for the month of September.
Thank you, Mr. Moulton. Any questions, comments?
No.
On the maintenance report? Hearing none.
Thank you.
We're going to go on to 8C, capital projects. Mr. Daly, you going to take that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll start off with the paving projects. We've completed what we're going to be doing for this year. At this point, some of the paving we had scheduled due to the lateness of the receiving area, we can't do any paving there at this time, so that will be deferred to 2025. On to number 3, the spout repair for the shipping area. Majority of the work is completed, and we're just waiting on the building completion again to finish approximately 5% of that. Our talked about this before, our grain elevator bin walls, we're deferring that to next year. We'll do an analysis on that, present that to the committee. The new container loading spout, we're expecting November delivery. We hope to have that completed before the end of the year. Coverage storage, we are looking at different types of buildings and so on. That definitely is being deferred to 2025 as reported earlier. Marina waterfront, we did complete the marina area, as you know. We're looking at the walkway and we're looking at bringing that forward to a carryover in budget for next year. We won't be doing that this year. But right now we're just looking at potential costs, and we've got some one of the engineer looking at that to give us an approximately cost and what that will cost, and we'll bring that forward for the 25 budget if we want to do some work there. We may look at that and enhancing it with some of the plantings and so on that we talked about in the past, and so we might put that project all together. That's where we were involving the Akwesasne and so on, and Mohawk Council on that, and so we'll probably tie that project in together for next year. So our track shed, our repairs and modifications, that's ongoing. The building is slightly delayed. We're staying on it. We think we're backed up a couple of weeks now, but again, we're expecting to have that done before the end of the year. We're still Ops is doing a great job negotiating around that and still getting the grain out, even though we're short our outgoing pit, so to speak. So good job to Ops on that. The warehouse, the land development, we're spoke with EV Engineering out of Cornwall. I met with them on site and last week and talked about the drainage plan and what that might look like. So they're doing that project now as we speak. Hopefully we'll have something before the end of the year. That's the plan. As you know, we deferred any work in that area this year. So basically what we're doing now is just developing a drainage plan so that next year when we bring that forward for budget, we'll know exactly what where's the best place to, if we were to do some stone and put some stone down and so on, we'll have that information ready for that. As you know, the new grain dryer is completed, and great work to everyone. We did our ribbon cutting. That was exciting. And so I believe we may have some wet corn coming in a couple of weeks, Mike, and we'll get that dryer going, which is great news for the port. The rest of them are basically, those are our major projects. The rest of them are minor projects that we're working away at, and things are progressing fairly well, but I'll entertain any questions that you have at this time on those projects.
Questions, comments around the table, please?
I have a couple, Chair, if that's
Go
okay.
ahead, Mr. Mayor.
The paving areas that are to be done, the question isn't really in regard to, yeah, I mean, you said we're done where we are or what we can do this year at the 143, 142. Is that's correct? The areas that are indicated there, are any of those on the main dock, or are they just around that, that shed area and that widening of that lane?
Correct. The
That's-
latter. Yeah.
That's all that it is. There's
None of
nothing
it-
for the docks.
Nothing for the docks
Okay,
and that.
cool. That's all I had for that. Spout repair. I have missed one. I missed the September meeting. It's possible that we discussed a spout repair, but I don't recall ever hearing about spout being damaged. Is there information for that? I don't.
When part of that is when we're looking at our container system that we're putting in, that we need new spouting. And when we're looking at the spouting that we would need to alter for that project, there was some spouting that needed to be moved and rearranged in order to fit that spouting in. And so that's basically what that is about.
So it's not actually number 5. It's part of number 5 though. It relates to that project.
It's nice together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The track shed, you see those pipes that all run down
Yeah.
and go into different areas. Some of those bent a little bit.
Oh, okay.
shifted, so we-
Now that you said that, it sparked my memory.
Yeah,
I remember
we
us
had to
talking
move a
about it.
couple, so we just, while we're working, we thought, let's fix it and make it right, get the angle right, so we get better flow and.
Yeah, I remember that discussion now. Yeah. And 2 more, Chair, if you don't mind, real quick.
Oh, no,
Um,
go ahead.
Track shed, obviously, from what you've said, it's behind time. You said, hopefully it'll be done by the end of the year.
Mhm.
You said they've caught up a couple of weeks. The weather's been fantastic.
Mhm.
I'm more concerned. I mean, if they're catching up, that's great, but I'm more concerned about the budget. They're behind time, but still on budget?
That's Kevin's project, and I can't tell you at tonight's meeting if the 2.3 million is still the target, like if that's whether or not we're going to end up over budget or not. We'd have to defer that and get back to you on that question.
Okay, if you can do that. And the next one is, we did commission the dryer. We did the ribbon cutting for the dryer to be officially open. There's still a little over 1.1, almost 1.2 left in that budget. I'm assuming we're awaiting on final invoices for that, but same question, on time, on budget?
That's correct. We are waiting for the final invoices, and 10% holdback would be in there as well. And it's as far as I know, it's within budget.
Awesome. Thank you for the answers. And I look forward to hearing
you're
on
welcome.
number 9.
Mr. Cameron, I'll take you. You have your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor answered one of my questions with regards to the 1.2 in the budget, where we are on track. So thank you for that one. Mr. Operations Manager, you mentioned that, Mr. Daly, that we've got wet corn maybe in a week or 2. Is the grain dryer officially and all the infrastructure operational today to receive corn? Because I know guys are pulling it off right now. I'm not yet, but some are. I just wondered why a few weeks out. Is that a timing issue, or is it we're waiting to commission something or get something in place?
Well, mechanically, it is ready to operate. I'll defer the operational question to my ops manager as far as timing on when we're going to bring corn in.
Okay, thank you.
I've had several conversations with a lot of the local farmers, and it seems really that that's about the time frame that they're looking to come in.
Okay.
A lot of them are just finishing up their beans now, and I talked to a guy in Wolf Island today who's, you know, they did some hand samples at 27%, so they're waiting for it to come down a little bit. So we thought, you know, within the next 2 weeks, he'd be looking to bring some down, and that just seems to be the general consensus right now. I'm not saying
Okay.
we may not see a request next week, but from what I feel right now, it'll be 2 weeks.
Okay, fair enough. I know a lot of corn here in East is coming in 21 to 23 right now. So that's why I was kind of curious why it was still a couple weeks out. But you're ready to go. If they say go, we're green light and we
It's-
can probably do it.
We actually ran some beans through and tested it, and it's
Nice.
everything works. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good beta test.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. Thanks a lot. Terrific place to be right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Mr. Ward, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My question, I guess, is about the grain loading spout. So we said November, we're expecting to get that delivered and set up by November. Is that what I understood? In December, okay, gotcha. Okay, and I never thought about it before. That's inside the bays, is it not, or is it going to be an external?
It's external, but it'll be going into the new building that's being
Okay.
built right
Right.
now.
Okay, so it's not like it's going to be, we won't be able to run it during the winter. It'll be usable in the winter because it's inside the building and. Okay,
Yes,
nope, that's good.
absolutely, yeah.
And then the only last little question, it's more of just was a thought. I know last year we spent all that energy on the Porta John warehouse in the back. They're getting all the trees and everything taken care of. So are we bush hugging that regularly as well? Or I just want to make sure that we're not going to see in a few years the same problem again, right?
No, we're not.
No. Okay. Not?
No, not this year. We're not bush hogging it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
doing a drainage plan on it, and that's when we spoke to this at the budget time last year, you deferred it for a year, so we're not doing any work on it. To go bush hog it right now, there's a lot of rocks and so on, and
Blades.
the way it's set up there, that's not something that we could readily do with our group, with our
Okay.
workers. So if we want to put money into that to keep that cleared, that wasn't budgeted for.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Moving on to financial third quarter investment report. Rhonda, are you going to take care of that?
Yes, I will. Thanks.
Thank you.
So our revenue for the month was 1.8 million, which is an increase of 257,000 compared to 2023 and an increase over budget by 200,000. Our expenses were kept under budget by 84,000, resulting in an overall surplus of 1.296 million, which exceeds September's budgeted surplus of 1 million, just over 1 million by 284,000 and exceeds 2023 by 236,000. It's also the highest September the port has had. Our third quarter financial update, the port finished the third quarter with in a positive position of 1.984 million. This is a significant improvement over the third quarter results for 2023, which was a positive 1.6 million, and is also the highest third quarter results that we've had. The budget for the third quarter was a positive of 1.297 million, so the port is well on its way to a very successful 2024 as we head into the final quarter of the year. Our breakdown of revenues and expenses, our harbor services are still down 117,000. Our grain services are up 74,000. Rail is down 92,000. Leases are up 24,000. Our labor and benefits are up 132,000. Our utilities are down 119,000. Our operating and admin is down 103,000, which mainly consists of advertising is down 27,000. Office and admin is down 23,000. Materials supplies is down 4,000. Outside services is down 80,000, and insurance is up 32,000. As of September, the port has transferred 750,000 towards our annual payment of $1 million to the township. Our receivables are at 2,074,662, and they do all remain at 30 days and under. Our payables are at 338,161, and our cash on hand is 4,005,265. And if you want to just go to page 14, it's our third quarter investments. We will have a GIC, the 12-month RBC coming due in December, so we'll bring that to the November, December meeting, depending on when the meetings are lined up for. The only significant changes is the Scotiabank HISA. It has dropped from 5.275% at the end of the second quarter down to 4.775. And also our operating account, same as dropped from 5.2% down to 4.733%. Any questions?
Questions, comments on the third quarter report? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you again, Chair. Comparison is September of 2023 to September of 2024, Rhonda? Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So what drove a reduction of $120,000 in utilities? Do we have any idea why there's such a dramatic decrease in utility costs?
That was the Union or Enbridge gas. We weren't receiving the bills for the longest time. And then we did some catch up on them. Hydro has been down. Those would be the two main.
Do we know what's driving, like 120K is a lot of money, right? Like I get we were behind or whatever with hydro or with Enbridge, but I mean, is a lot of that hydro and how?
Hydro is 55,000 of that.
Hydro. Sorry, natural gas is down 73,000.
73.
Silver and drying is down. Drying all these are coming in. We haven't.
So we're earlier then is what we're drying earlier because. So the next question then is there's 103 difference in office and admin, and I know you have it broken down there, but like how did we advertise 27K less? How do we use 23K less in admin? I think they're fantastic that we're doing less, but or that we're seeing returns on those, but a little bit more information would be great. Outside services 80K down as well. It's a lot.
Advertising is a lot because last year we had the plowing match in there. The final payment of the Aquatarium was in there, which we didn't have this year. Outside services, lawyer fees, we didn't have as much this year. Last year was a lot due to the union contract. So we had a lot more union or lawyer fees. And also last year with outside services, some of that would have been related to the rail projects that we turned around and billed back as revenue to Jones Rail, but it does show up in our expenses under outside service. And with not having any of that this year, it's made the biggest increase or decrease in it.
Report in, report out. Okay, good. No, thank you.
Is that okay, Mr. Mayor? Or one more?
I did have one more. So
You're on.
and I'm pretty sure that Frank will go to this too, but for the HISA reduction to 4.7, I think, or 7.75, that's going to happen. I think another 0.5 is probably realistic from what it sounds like. We will have GICs that are going to come up, but they're going to see that same kind of reduction as well, right? I mean, we're getting fantastic rate of return on them now. I think I'm probably directing it more at you than staff, but do we have a plan for that?
Not as of yet. Markets are really uncertain at the moment. There is an expectation certainly that interest rates will continue to decline. Inflation seems to have come down, but you've got this thing called the US election coming up in 2 weeks. So I don't know that anyone's ready to predict what happens to markets, what happens to rates until that finally resolves itself. Fortunately, we've got till the end of December. So I think we'll take a hard look at it in November, going into early December, decide what to do then.
Chair, if I may.
Oh, you're on a roll.
Are we, when it is, so when it comes due, do like, we can extend it, they'll offer us an opportunity. But if we haven't received direction from this group yet, what's the outcome at that point?
When the GIC matures, the money would simply go into the operating account and we would receive interest at the rate that's in the operating account. So you're under no obligation to renew the GIC at time of renewal or at expiry. It can simply go into the operating account. So we can decide on our own time frame as opposed to what the banks decide. The other option always is what we had before in terms of the one investment funds. That's always an option for us too, given the uncertainty and given the uncertainty in terms of how much cash we might need. I think that's always part of this discussion is you get to the budget period, determine how much cash you need, and then you can decide, do we want to go a year? Do we want to go 2 years? Do we want to go 3 years? Or do we need to keep much more cash on hand given the capital expenditures?
Thanks, Frank.
Sure.
Are you sure, Mr. Mayor? Good. Anyone else, please? Frank, no? Frank, you okay? Okay. Randy? Okay. Move on to vessel traffic report. Mr. Dolly, you taking that?
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for 2024 current year to date, we're basically up now in our grain numbers. As you can see, 98,651 and 13.5 compared to 81 and 8,000 last year. Our salt is a little bit behind last year. We did expect that. We don't expect to hit the numbers that we hit last year, but we've been reporting that at every meeting. Our aggregate is, we're not expecting any more this year, so basically the same as last year. And our liquid bulk, nice to see that we got 3 barges in this year. I think that will be it for the year versus the one that we got prior. Break bulk, we did get some break bulk. We'd like to see bigger numbers than that, but we are ahead of last year. So altogether, we're on total cargo. We are slightly behind last year, but again, that's the salt numbers that heavily impact that. Year to date for vessels, we're at 35 vessels.
Questions, comments?
Test. Yeah, any questions? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Set that magic touch. Questions, comments? Mr. Ward, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So last year we took in, I guess so far this year, pardon me, we've taken in about 65,000 megatons, megatons? Go with megatons, it sounds way better.
I like that.
Now how do I recover from this, right? Anyways, but when you look at the docks are still full, right? And I know, we've been having this conversation for a while now. Are we expecting more ships, or I guess more importantly, are we expecting to get the dock under control, I guess, this year by the end of the year, or what's that look like from an outlook perspective?
What's your definition of under
I
control?
shouldn't say out of control. There's just a lot of salt there, right? And I know we keep talking
There's a lot
about
of salt.
it should empty out at some point throughout the year, and I don't think it did, if I heard correctly last year.
And that's a fair statement, Mr. Counselor. We're looking at potentially, I believe, another 4 vessels. Rhonda, I don't know what you're aware of at this time. I think it's around 4 salt vessels that are earmarked to come in yet. So a couple from Compass, K&S near the end will put some in. I think we're done with Cargill. So basically what it will look like is the Compass pile, I believe, will only probably half the size of the K&S pile, which is the pile adjacent to the river. So if you're following me, we've got K&S is full, and then going north, Compass is next. They're going to probably utilize about half of their space. I just think that's just due to contracts that they have this year. And then we'll have K&S bringing in some extra near the end. And so we'll have that one area that you see now that's kind of in the middle of the dock. We're leasing that out to across the street to Riedel Bulk because they need to honor their contracts with KNS and they don't have any more room on their side. So that's what we're doing now. We're leasing a section there. So what you'll see is the cargo pile that you see now will remain that way until they start trickling out to North Gore. You'll see the Compass pile the way it is now, one more vessel, probably maybe two. And then that pile in the middle, that'll be the first pile to leave when they start bringing the salt out. So that's the agreement, last in, kind of first out. So we'll see what kind of winter we have, and it'll be next year will be another interesting year.
Thank you very much. And that I know it's just that hot topic we don't really talk about too much, but does that put us in any trouble with the ministry at all because of all the salt that's still there, or are they okay?
No,
with it?
I mean, we're following our best practices. These are all leases that we have. Just to refresh everyone's memory, KNS has a lease for 100,000 tons, Compass 100,000, and then you have Cargill at 40,000. So as I said, KNS will probably go over by 30 or 40, and Compass will probably be under by 30 or 40. So basically, the amount that we have on our leases will be the amount that will probably be close to that on our dock by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So the dock won't be bare.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Two quick questions. And they both relate to the same sort of thing. So we're down on how much we have, but it appears that there's a lot on the docks. Do we see or have we felt any impact of the port in Morrisburg taking salt? And the second part of that question is, we have best practices that we follow, where, wind, rain, that sort of stuff. Having been by there, they don't follow the same best practice. Are they being monitored to the same degree and to the same extent that we are? Or do we know?
I think that's an excellent question. I don't know the answer to that. I know that I've had some comments from certain people that they're wondering the same thing. As you know, there's a new company looking after that now. It used to be the same stevedores that we're using. It's no longer them. And so there are concerns there as well. It is surprising because of the neighbors and so on there. Usually it's a little tighter controlled, but they seem to be bringing it in and out. First part of your question, is it impacting the port? It could be somewhat, but there's always been salt there that doesn't come through the port. So I don't see a big impact. I think the bigger impact is the fact that we didn't use a lot of salt last year and we brought in a record quantity. I think that's the bigger influence. But they're good questions, and I don't have unfortunately, the answer to those. I'm hoping that they're being kept to the same standard as we are.
I think I could maybe touch on that. I've been down there all summer, and you're right there. They're not playing the same game, but it's just a matter of neighbors complaining. And once they complain to the Ministry of Environment, then they'll have to follow the same rules as we do, I'm sure. I mean, they just can't leave it. There was one time there, I think it was 5 months, where I showed pictures up to the general manager, and it was brown. That's how bad it was. So, and I can't see the neighbors putting up with that. But again, that's not our concern, really. So.
To that point, it is though, right? Because I mean, we have a standard that we have to upkeep. We're being held to it, and if we're discharging it to the water, I mean, everybody has to play on the same game, the same fairness game. So I do think, in fairness, it is. I mean, we're a leader, right? I mean, they have to follow the same rules.
Yeah, same rules, but I looked at that myself, and I was telling the GM about, why aren't they following the same rules? And I think it just takes some neighbors complaining or seeing that the wind blowing, and I see some tarps there last week, so I think maybe they're starting to follow the rules. Any other questions, comments on the vessel traffic report? Nothing there. Health and safety report. Who's going to do that?
I'll take that, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So from Prevention and Regulatory Solutions, for the month, conduct an H&S orientation session for newly hired casual employees. Conducted the quantitative respirator fit test for all port personnel. And updated the 2024 EH&S planned and completed activity list and forwarded to the port general manager for review and determination of remaining year-end work. And that's what John did for the month.
Thank you, Mr. Moulton. Questions, comments? On the health and safety report, if any? Okay, we're going to move on to the GM report. Go ahead, Mr. Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An abbreviated report. As you know, I was away for a number of weeks during this since we last met. We met with the EV Engineering, as I discussed earlier, for the drainage plan, and they're working on completing this in the fourth quarter. We had our weekly grain broker meeting, and the port's grain ops team is doing a great job processing soybean. The brokers are happy, and it looks like we're getting vessels in a good regular schedule. So great work. Logistec, just an update, that transformer that we had, it was transferred successfully from rail to truck, excuse me. It's now departed, and we have several salt vessels we're still expecting to close out the year. Just wanted to acknowledge the financials and the fact that the port had a terrific third quarter, so hats off to the team. And of course, on behalf of the port staff, just a warm welcome to our incoming general manager, Leslie Drynan. We had our first day today, and things are going very well. And yeah, we're looking forward to her being at the port and adding her expertise. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Mr. Mayor, you just go right ahead, please.
No, mine's going back to the last one, sorry, to the health and safety report, and just going back to page 7. There is, under the recordable incidents and injuries, there was one incident that's obviously a lost work and one that's under total recordables. Is that something that I missed in the past? Because I remember those as all being zeros.
Here at the last meeting, that's when it was at the last meeting that we.
Questions, comments? GM report? Mr. Cameron? See you.
Did somebody respond to the mayor's question? I missed the response.
It was discussed during the last meeting.
Yes. It was a man lift.
Right. Yep.
I'll just go back and watch the video, Clint. It's all good.
Fair enough. Okay.
Any other questions, comments on the table? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for 8A, B, C, D, E, F, and G? Moved by Mr. Ward and seconded by Mr. Martel. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to 8H, and that's the port terms reference update and committee advisory. I guess it probably, this is my baby, or are you going to speak, Rebecca?
Through the chair, I'll actually speak to this one. So
Great, we're going to fight over it. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
So just for reference, to update the Port of Johnstown Management Committee terms of reference to reflect requested changes to the committee advisory member participation. So a bit of background was at the September meeting, a request was made to review and update the port terms of reference to allow committee advisory members the ability to vote in open session while still restricting participation of closed session in-camera sessions to only members of council. Based on that request, staff has prepared a track changes version of the terms of reference, incorporating the proposed changes. Please refer to Schedule A, Clause 5. For policy implications, any amendments, updates to the terms of reference require approval by council bylaw. There are no strategic plan implications. That's kind of a new thing on our reports, since we have a new strategic plan at the township. Every action item we bring has to have a strategic plan impact. So there's none in this case. There's no financial considerations in this case. And there is a recommendation that committee recommends that council adopt the updated port terms of reference as attached.
May I have a mover on this recommendation? Questions after? Moved by Mr. Martell and second by Mr. Smell. All in favor? Okay, let's vote, have a discussion first. Thank you. Open for discussion. Questions, comments? Go ahead, Mr. Ward.
So I fought with this one a lot over the weekend, and it's not that, you know, I mean, I think we have a good council, a good committee, pardon me. We have great representation. But you know, I know when we did when we adopted the terms of reference early on, you know, it was part of the decision where we went to having 4 extra members on there, and I worry a little bit about and it's basically we have different obligations behind it, and I worry a little bit about a situation that could be created where, you know, what if you know, four committee members and only one or sorry 5 vote for something, only one of them or 2 of them are on council. We don't have a majority of council, so I struggle with that a little bit, to be honest, and you know, how we approach that. I did get a bit of a conversation going email wise, I guess, with the clerk, and you know, understand that. So the budget, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. Budgetarily, we set the budget from a council perspective. And then any expenses thereafter, anything we have to do where we go beyond the $75,000, I think is the current number, but I know that'll change, above budget, we then have to have a good discussion at council as well, I believe, right? So if that's the case, then I have less
No.
worrying about it, but I do think
No,
that's not the case, no?
no,
Okay,
no.
then I guess, so the question is, so what happens if something does go above budget by above that 75K mark then? To whoever that, I'm not sure, to the chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Clerk.
Wasn't sure who was putting their hand up first. Through the chair, thank you. That is based on our procurement policy for every other committee internally at the township office. However, with the port terms of reference, we've built it to have greater efficiency without less of a turnaround time for port staff to execute matters quickly. So within the port terms of reference, council does approve the final operating and capital budgets, and anything that exceeds the overall budget goes before council for approval. Anything within the budget for the port is approved by the committee level.
In other words, like if we had a building at 1.2 million and we passed the budget and it went 1.5, it's got to come back to council. It's not approved. That helps you, Mr. Ward.
Yeah, I think it does. Like I said, I'm just worried a bit about that. I know I had some concerns about legal, but I think I was just worried about that, but that's more of a closed session conversation. So that is not something we're adopting here. So I think I have less concerns about it after the conversations I had through the clerk today as well. But thank you very much for that, Mr. Chair.
You're most welcome there. Mr. Ward, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I too certainly have learned over the last 2 years. I certainly in the past had a difficulty with the potential of being, as an elected official, overridden by the sheer number of committee members at this table that have no responsibility to accountability, right? And so I always struggled with the fact that 4+1, you know, overrules the majority of council, and I struggle with that. My concern still is that, and so when we had our budget deliberations this year, we talked about the building, and my understanding about the potential building was we wanted to earmark the dollar value for the building, but there was not an intention to build that building this year. That's the way I understood it. So we were earmarking it for that. We were going to do some work towards it, but there wasn't an intention. maybe I'm wrong in thinking that. But what happens if, again, 4 committee members decide plus 1 council member that it's approved in the budget, that they want to build the building, that the building is there, and council doesn't want to build the building, and the building's renderings come in at under 1.2, we're building a building that council really doesn't want to build. And that's the scenario that I struggle with. Leads me to understand that there's other changes maybe that need to be made, reserve accounts, that sort of thing, if we're going to go towards that. But going back to those discussions, maybe I heard them wrong, but my idea was that we were earmarking that money, and then the scenario could happen. I mean, will it? I don't think so. I don't really think that this group disagrees that much, but it could. And then you have and I value, the opinions of each and every single committee member that's here. But at the end of the day, the elected officials are the ones where the buck stops, right? It's fantastic to have the input, and I think they should have a vote as to how that goes. But I don't think that those votes should be able to override the will of council. And so I'm not sure how we manage that in that specific situation, or spending that could be approved in a budget that council decides they want to cut back, but committee's priority is, advancement at the port, which could be different than the philosophy of council. And it certainly could spin that in a direction in which council isn't interested in going. And that creates a bad scenario. So I'm just looking for some staff input on that.
Ms. Clerk?
Through the chair, it really all depends on the comfort level of the committee and council at this stage. We can revamp the terms of reference further. Depending on what you're looking for, we can change it around. So yes, everyone votes, but it needs a majority of council support on any vote. That kind of takes away again the idea of what our deputy mayor was putting forward, to have all equal voting parts and support throughout it. We could have over and above certain ranges that it would come back to council no matter what. But again, we're in that scenario of, do you trust and want the accountability for your committee members versus council? We would need some direction as to what you guys are looking for in the long run.
Go ahead.
I think for me, moving forward, right, I want the committee members to have a vote. I mean, I brought it up at our last council meeting that I feel, even in closed, I've since reconsidered that, because it's a lot of times when we're enclosed, it's about staffing issues or stuff like that. And I understand why they can't be in there for those discussions. So, but I certainly support the idea for the vote. My concern, though, is that, when we pass things in a budget, as the way that we currently pass them, and we don't necessarily, and this year is probably a bad example, because we're actually completing almost all of the things on the budget. But in years past, we've had a $10 million budget where we've done $3 or $4 million worth of the work, right? But we've earmarked a lot of those times, and they're in there as placeholders in our budget. And there's been the scenario that could exist that I mentioned, before. And so moving forward, I guess that's something that we have to identify when we pass things in a budget, that if we aren't actually going to action them, we aren't planning to do them that year, then, then is the time, I suppose. But I'm still not comfortable with that. I mean, we were elected to do the job. And I value, again, I mean this as no, it's a difficult thing to say, right? Because I don't mean any attack against you guys at all when I say that, but the accountability does stop with us. And really, when we make those decisions, I'd prefer that we made them, right? So.
Through the chair, we have been in this scenario, not with this particular committee in the past. I want to say 2 terms ago now, we did implement where all members of the committee, both advisory and council, were voting members. However, decisions that were contentious in nature, anything where there was a split amongst the council where it wasn't majority support within the council chairs, they would have to, those items would have to come back to council for final ratification. That again is an option, but you're potentially delaying port staff on executing their mandate as well. I'm open to other suggestions. We can always hold off on a month and port staff, we can discuss alternate options to see where we want to land on this and what the comfort level is with internal, and then bring something further back.
Thank you, Rebecca. My suggestion here as chair, I want this brought forward. And after 18 months working with our committee, I have all the confidence in the world of their decisions and their input. So I, myself, as chair though, I have no problems of them voting on our budget or anything else in that matter, except for closed session. I have an issue with the closed session. It's just like, you know, the reason why we don't want to bring up for the public. So there's a recommendation here. Any other comments or concerns? Go ahead. But that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. Go ahead, Mr. Martel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I can certainly see your point with wanting advisory members to vote, but and no disrespect, but I think at the end of the day, they're advisory members. They're on the committee, so we can get their expert advice. So I'm not really 100% behind the having everyone vote. The other thing is, as the mayor alluded to, you know, the onus is on the elected members here. Once you take that off, then the heat is also on the elected members. So if we are letting advisory members vote, then we're saying, here, you can have some of the heat when your neighbor calls you and says, why in the hell did you vote that way on that? You know, it's, yeah, I'm not comfortable with it. I see the point you're making, but it doesn't feel right. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. McCauley, go ahead.
Just a couple of things. One, I wouldn't make your decision based upon the current incumbents. You should make your decision based upon the concept of an advisory member. Because in an adverse scenario, you get a different series of members the next go around and you go, I don't have confidence in them. So what would you do? Withdraw the voting privilege? So my only point being, I think the decision you make should be made irrespective of who's in these chairs. I think that's just wise going forward. And the second is simply a question, and it's around quorum. To the extent that the four of us were voting committee members, is there a scenario where you need 5 people for quorum and 4 of them are advisory committee members and 1 is from council? That wouldn't seem right to me somehow.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. I do think as well, one of the other things that, and I know, Frank, that this applies to you, but I know you believe in both things that I'm about to say. But I believe that your concept is that you're here for the best interest of the port, right? And I think council, right, believes in what the best interest of the port, but we're also here for the best interest of the township overall. And I think therein lies one of the most important things for me, is that when we do have new committee members, we have committee members that have been on before, is what is the philosophy? What is the you know, the reason that member is there for? And I know when you came aboard, the philosophy was always what's best for the port. And that philosophy with this term, this mandate, has certainly changed. And we appreciate, you know, the commitment that you have. Your financial knowledge is fantastic. Your decision approach is great. And every single one of us trusts and listens when you speak. You have knowledge that none of us have. And we really appreciate that. And we know that you put the best interests of that place before it, right? But we're here with a bit of a different mandate with this group, and that in it is where one of the areas that I do struggle with as well, and I don't call that into question. I know it's you're there for the right reason, and we really appreciate that, but it's definitely a difference in philosophy.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And I think that's where, you know, I think the mayor just hit on like something that really resonates with me is that, you know, we want the feedback for sure. I think we're getting great feedback. I think the relationship is going really well, but we also have that second master that let's say the five of us are responsible for, and that we don't have that shared that shared responsibility. And I shouldn't say it like that because I know that you guys are, you know, from the township and work for it, but you know, at the end of the day, we're responsible back to the voters for the township perspective. So that's where I'm sitting on the fence about what to do with this, to be honest. And I think I'm really getting closer to a decision at this point, but thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I certainly don't want to see this fall apart because I do want to see the voting member privileges back. And I do think the issues that we have can be solved in the way that we budget, in the way that we bring budgets forward, and the way that those budgets are approved, whether that's with reserve accounts or with, you know, once that budget is set, then we do stick to it, and the votes go where the votes go. I think the speed that things need to be done to support the business side of the port has to be done at a different speed than governance is done typically within the township. They don't mesh well, right? I think you do still have to operate that as a profit, as a surplus generating business, right? And I think as a business owner, waiting 3 months to make decisions isn't acceptable. You need to be able to make those decisions faster and on the fly. And that is why I support certainly having the votes. But I think it comes down to, you know, making some changes in that budgeting process and understanding the cash flow that the business needs to operate and the way that we earmark those, whether they're through reserve funds that need to be set up or you know, we use reserve funds as GICs now, but they're not actually, you know, earmarked for anything in the GIC. We earmarked it and included it in a budget this year, but we're not going to complete it. And with those voting rights, it could put that decision-making process at risk. So I just think I do want to see it go forward. I certainly support the voting rights, but I think we need some tweaking on the back end of it to make sure that it works in a responsible, respectful manner.
Any other questions, comments on it? The recommendations? Go ahead, Mr. Smell.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with what Tori has been saying, but I've been sitting here listening to everybody and everybody has great ideas, but they're called advisory committee. They advise us. So we make the decision, like Councilor Ward said, that we're the councilor, we owe it to the taxpayers. We take their advice because they're advisory, and that's why they're here, because we all thought and agreed that they were great people and they knew what they were going to be doing when they were here, and they dedicate themselves. These guys are probably the top-notch smart men in what the ports there is. If we're going to let them vote, what happens, like as the advisory committee member right here said, new committee members come in and one or two, three guys don't trust them. So it has to be tweaked. Like we have to vote on it. Say, for example, council at the next election, those councillors get in, whether they get to vote that 4 years while they're there. Like there's just little things that have to be tweaked before we can say no or say yes. That's my opinion anyway.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, so
Mr.
just
Ward?
one last thing so that we get it out there and it's clear. You know, I don't necessarily mind or object to the voting rights, but as it's written right now, I can't see myself agreeing with that. So I just want to make sure we're clear that that's where I'm going in this conversation, so that we can, if there's anything you want to do about that, we could address that. But you know, I don't think that we can resolve it tonight, to be honest. I think we'd have to take it offline, and I think since we've moved it and seconded it, I'm not sure that we can come to a conclusion on it. But I'll defer to the chair. Yep.
Through the chair, this time I'd recommend just a motion to defer. and we will take it back and work on those changes.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
And it's to Councillor Smale's point. And I agree, but full agreement with what you said, advisory committee members as well. It's the battle that I do in my head when I think about it, but we're the mandate, right? We don't have to do what councils before us did, right? That's the thing about elections, right? It brings change. So when we're talking about committee structures, when we're talking about the way they're formed, when we're talking about voting rights, when we're talking about those things, that's all within our mandate. It's all within us. It's all within each council's rights to set and shape those committees, how they choose so that they function. If you've recognized that it didn't work this term and you want it to work differently in the next term, you have that ability. That's why we're reviewing it after 2 years, right? We made changes at the beginning of our term from last term. And the next council, it's totally within their purview to make those changes as they choose, right? We can do it at any time.
Any other questions? You just go right ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to defer.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, we already have a motion on the table, so that one will have to be removed by the mover or seconder. Through the chair, Councillor Martell moved and Councillor Smale seconded. So you can either remove that motion from the table
A
or
friendly
defeat the
motion.
motion and then address the motion to defer. We can't have two motions on the
Okay.
table at the same time.
So do I need to verbally unmove that movement? Consider it unmoved.
I agree, same thing.
Thank you. That recommendation is removed. First and second, we have, I need a mover and a second to defer and review further to see where we are on this matter.
I'll move the deferral.
Boy, well, we're happy for that one. I bet you, Mr. Ward, you're going to second it? All in favor? Discussion, if any.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, are we, to the staff, is the intention to use this template for all committees, or is this specific to the Port Committee? Because if we're deferring this to think about advisory members, let's do it for all the committees, or just this one. What's our thought here?
Through the chair, this is the terms of reference dedicated only to the Port Management Committee. We have a full terms of reference that you just saw last Monday evening for the rest of our committees of council.
Any other discussions, questions on this? Going to call the vote. All in favor? Okay. Against? Approval of the disbursement, port accounts. Anybody has any questions, comments on the disbursements? Need a mover and a seconder? Approved. Moved by Mr. Ward, seconded by Mr. Martell. Any questions, comments on the disbursements? Hearing none. All in favor? Thank you. Council inquires notice of motion. If any. Okay, chair's report. I just have a short one. We had our grand opening for our new grain dryer. I'd like to thank our GM Robert Daly and Kevin Saunders, operation managers, for getting off the ground and to continue where it was and to be completed and up and running. Without the Agriculture and Ag Food Canada, I said this on Thursday, but I'm going to say it for the record, and our MP Durant of Glengarry Russell Prescott, Parliamentary Secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture, with that grant, that project wouldn't continue. So I can't say enough for the federal government of what they've been doing, ongoing support, and they continue to invest in the Port of Johnstown. So I think they deserve a lot of credit on this. It's been $6 million they have generated to the Port of Johnstown in the last 6 years that I've been on board. So they need a lot of, a lot of credit where it's due. So that's my report. And welcome again, Leslie. Thanks. Are you sure? Okay. Okay, number 13. I need a move and a second for adjourn. Moved by Mr. Mayor and second by Mr. Ward. All in favor? Done. At 7:42. Thank you.